Hello, Chaim. I'm giving the shir today as quickly as I can, trying to catch up. And
why does it have to be quick?
Because we're behind the page.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, you know what I mean. But anyway, certainly pipe in at any time you can help. But I'll do the best I can. But I'm glad I have someone coachable on. Okay.
Go for it.
All right, I'm backing up just to put us back in memory mode. We're on 25, Chaf Hey, Amid Beis, where it says, Rasan Ochlin. All right, he saw them eating. He sees a group of people eating. I think they were eating dates. I don't know, but Yonatan didn't show up and can always use a date. Hi, Daniel. All right, so he sees them eating, a group of people. All right. And hold on. Need some props. Here's some props. If you, I don't know, can you see any of this, or is this stuff all on the way?
They were eating figs and playing dominoes.
Whatever. It was Calle Ocho. Why? I'm trying to see myself here. So, I don't even know how to do this. Whoa. Chaim, do you see me? He's not answering.
I see you.
Okay, I see you, but I don't even see me. That's what's so weird here. Okay, so anyway, so he sees a group of people. Here's a group of people, all right, and they're eating dates. Props, so you remember that, all right? Where were we? Okay, so we learned in the Mishnah there, we may make an opening out of the honor of Shabbos and festivals. All right. Remember, openings are always talking about, we said, where the person made a neder, they want to get out of the neder, and then the based in kind of parts along, had you known this or that? When you also brought that postin up in the Shemaim is like they open up the books and say, you did this, but had you known this, would you really have done it? Ways to get you off the hook, right? Barishana Hayuamrim, originally they used to say them, Osan Hayamim Mutarim. Those Sabbath and festival days are permitted. Ushar Koyimim Masurim. Okay, just want you to remember. So we're talking about here Shabbos and Yantav. Yes. All right, Shabbos and Yantav. I don't know if you can see it's in there. Can you see that? Yeah, Shabbos and Yantav. All right. Okay. So those days are permitted, and all other days are shrum. And the rest of the days of the year forbidden. Achaba Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva comes along and taught Nedeshutu Miksaso Hutur Kulo. This is a main theme that will be within the next page or two. So simply translated, it means a vow that part of it is annulled, all the vow is annulled, all right? A vow that is nullified in part is nullified in its entirety. The Gemara now cites Rabba's example regarding the dispute in the Mishnah between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And as Naftali mentioned right before, we all know Hillel and Shammai way at the top of the list of Tanoim, but Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, the houses of them lasted for 200 years is with the schools of thought, and they argued a lot more than Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, in the hundreds of fold. All right. So there's a dispute whether neder null in part is null in its entirety. All right. And then Rabbi Akiva says if it's in part annulled, the whole thing's annulled. Amar Rabba. So Rabba says, now this is, I think, Rava, not Rabba. I'm not sure. It's always getting a little confusing. Which one? All you have to remember is Rabba was the teacher of Rava and Abaye. All right. So if it's Rabba, it's the teacher. If it's Rava, it's the student. Unfortunately, no nekudos in the Gemara, so sometimes it's a little confusing. Right. Anyway, he says, Rabbi said, the Kulayama, according to our opinions, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whenever the vower says, had I known my father was amongst you, So he's saying that I made a vow. He said, all you people that were sitting there eating your dates, all right? You better move over one chair because I need this place here. All right, but these dates are for you, for this shit. All right. So you're all forbidden, except for my father. Had he known. So the problem was, you see, he looked at the people, all right, and they all looked alike, kind of, And the one thing he didn't realize, that his father was amongst them. That's the number 2 there, all right. Had I known you were there, I would not have made this saying you're all usher, the Chon Asur and Ravi Muta. Then the law is that all of them are forbidden and his father is permitted. So that's making part of the vow allowed, but still leaving the rest usra. But we just mentioned Raya Akiba comes and says that when part of the vow is disallowed, it all becomes, which means they all should technically be allowed to eat. In this case, even Beis Hillel agree that only the erroneous part of the neder is no, and the rest of the neder remains in force. All right. Now, the vow insists that he had known that his father was amongst them. Had he known that, he would not have changed the fundamental formulas neder, but only add the explicit exception of his father. We're at the bottom of 25, just before, all right? So we're going to have 2 concepts always of, does he leave the neder the same, like Muhammad standing the same, or does he change the neder, all right? Once you start changing the neder, it shows that the way you said is really not what your intent was, and therefore, everyone's going to agree that you can. Here's what I'm going to get mixed up on this a lot because I got mixed up constantly reviewing this. I reviewed it 3 times, and every time I got mixed up more. But if you remember the concepts, then you can always go back and review and perhaps figure it out correctly for yourself. But again, the main concept is mirza is if part of the vow is annulled, everything is annulled. And also we're looking at, did he really change his vow or did he add the parentheses? He says, no, my vow's the same. Nobody can eat. He says, oh, I didn't realize my father was there. So parentheses, except my father. Or did he actually say, no, I would never made that vow. I would have said you and you can't eat. But of course, my father can eat. All right. He's not going to deny his father food. They argue only where he says, had I known that my father was amongst you, exactly what I just said. So and so are forbidden, and my father's allowed. All right, so now we are where we're supposed to be starting, top of 26a. For Rav Amar, and Rava says, yes, the Kuli Amar, everyone agrees, Kochecha, the Amar, wherever the vow says, Ilu Hayisi Yodea Shabbat B'nechem. Had I known my father was among you, I would have changed the vow and saying so and so is forbidden, but my father's forbidden. Kula Mutar. Everyone agrees that they're all allowed, because that's the concept of mitzvahs, neder, whatever the saying is, whatever. If part is permitted, the whole is permitted. For in the case of change formulation, all agreed in the neder nullified in part becomes nullified in its entirety. So that's a main takeaway point for today. So where did they argue? They argue only where he says, had I known that my father was among you, he's saying, he says, I would have retained my original formulation. This is again where case number 1, he says, he doesn't really change it. He adds the parentheses, which is, except my father. All right. Beis Hillel maintains that even in the case of neder, it's nullified in its entirety, whereas Beis Shammai hold that it is not nullified in its entirety. What is the basis of their dispute? All right. Now we're going to try and figure out what they're arguing about. Beis Shammai sabar to Rabbi Meir. So again, we mentioned earlier that Rav Meir says if part is a note, it's all a note. So that makes sense because we just said Beis Shammai holds is not nullified its entirety. So why not here? Beis Shammai separate like Rav Meir holds Dama Toughest Lashon Rishon, who said take hold, recognize the primacy of the first expression led by the person. Beis Hillel separate like Rav Yossi, which Beis Hillel holds Dama Bigma Dvarav Adam Nitpas. Okay, this is concept takeaway number 2. So again, Rav Meir and Rav Yossi, they're amongst those like half a dozen students of Rabbi Akiva. All right, so they're typically arguing a lot. All right, Rav Meir is also arguing probably with his wife, but loses those arguments. All right, yeah, agree, right? Okay, so so the question here is if a person makes 2 statements, all right, do we go to the first part of the statement or do we go to the end of the statement? It's like, when it says that Joseph threw his brothers threw Joseph into the pit. And then there's, I don't remember the exact sentence, the Vayavo Ishmaelim, Ishmael came by this, that, and they pulled him this, that. Who pulled him out of the pit? Did the brothers pull him out of the pit or did the Ishmaelim put it out of the pit? There's a little machlokas there about who really did the sale and the second group sold to a third group. It depends what you look at. In English, correct me, Professor, I think you look at the subject or you look at the last part of a sentence. Like he went with his friend and bought cheese. So who bought the cheese? His friend bought the cheese or he bought the cheese? So this is the kind of confusion that's going on here, whether you go by the first or the last, all right, of the words. The Gemara challenges Rava's explanation. Esfei Rav Papa LaRava. So Rav Papa asks Rava, we're now halfway down 26a. Ketzadam Rabbi Akiva, Nedashuta, Mikseso, Huta Kulo. How did Rabbi Akiva say that in the neder that's nullified in part is nullified in its entirety? But he wants a little bit more gashmias. He wants to really understand this a little bit better. Oh, I forgot to say, for our learning should be discussed. First of all, thank you, Hashem, for allowing us to learn. Sorry, Rabbi, since the beginning. And should bring your four shleimah to all those people who need four shleimas and all those people coming late to the class. All right. And if my son Benny is watching this, or my son Chazani or anybody else, hi. Okay. It's like those guys in the news. They walk up behind the glass in New York City and they waved. Yeah. Okay. Kanem sheni. If the vower said in his vow regarding a group of people, a konam, that I will not benefit from any of you. Now, konam, remember we learned this previous, like saying a korban, correct? It's like a slang term that for making a neder, all right? Konam, it's like I swear, isn't that what yeah, all right? So if he says, that if one of them is permitted, the konam is nullified with respect to one of them. All right. All of them, wait, let me go. If one of them is permitted, that is, the konam is nullified with respect to one of them, all of them are permitted. All right. That's Rabbi Akiva saying. She'eni nene zelaza. For the vow said, the konam that I will not benefit from this one or from that one. It's a little confusing. I'm going to keep on going on. Read it after. Huta Rishon, Hutra Kulam. Then if the first one is permitted, all of them are permitted. Huta Achwan, if the last one is permitted, Achwan, Muta, V'Kula, Nasun. All right. So let's say there's a case of 3 people. All right. Go back to the dominoes. All right. All right. 3 people. Oh, I can't balance it over here. And he says the first one is permitted. What's the domino effect? On the right. left if you want to. All right. First one's permitted, domino effect. They're all permitted. All right. But if he says the last one's permitted, these two still stand. They're not permitted. So it depends whether you look at the predicate, or whatever.
The subject.
First or the well, Papa now elaborates his challenge. It's amazing what you can do with dominoes. I never knew what they did in it. Now, this passage just quoted is well understood according to Rabbah, who explains that Beis Shammai do not subscribe at all to the principle that a neder nullified in part is nullified in its entirety, which is Rabbi Akiva's statement, and Beis Hillel hold that it is nullified in its entirety, only where the vower maintains that he would have changed his formulation. So remember, we said that there was two cases. There's one where he says, I'm not changing my neder, but as far as my father's concerned, he adds it in parentheses. So he really didn't change the neder. The second one is he actually reverbalizes the neder and says, no, you, and you're not allowed, but you can have. Okay. Okay. Mokim l'elevation, for he will interpret the first segment of the Mishnah as referring to where the vower maintained that he had known his father was amongst them. Had he known, he would have changed his formulation, said, I will not benefit from this one or from this one. And he will interpret the latter segment as referring where the vower said, for many of you, both initially and after describing that his father was amongst them. Again, when I start reading the words themselves, I can get very confused. Maybe I'm confusing you, but remember the takeaway points. But according to you, Rava, it is well that you can interpret the first segment of the Mishnah as referring to where he would have said, from any of you, even after discovering this, his father was amongst them. We're now up to the top of Chaf of Amud Beis, 26b. But how will you explain the latter segment of the Mishnah if you say that refers to where he said, had he known his father was amongst them, he would have changed his formulation and said from this one or from this one. Now, something that just flew by you all is, this is not the Reisha and the Sefer and the Mishnah. We always learn in the Mishnah, the first part of the Mishnah, the last part, the Reisha. Here they're just talking to cases. The first case was where he says, I wouldn't change anything at all, just have the parentheses. He's calling that the Reisha. The second case they were talking about here, Sefer is saying, no, I would have reiterated the whole thing and said, you, and you are not allowed, but my father's allowed. Yeah. All right. So it's a different terminology. It's a regular Ration Sefer, but referring to the first and second statement. Rabbi Akiva, it is the ruling in this section, specifically the view of Rabbi Akiva. That's a question. Am I pleading Rabbanan? Why would the rabbis argue with him in this case? Why you said that where the vower maintains that he would have changed his formulation, that was case number 2, all agree that the neder is nullified in its entirety. Rava defends his position. Amalei Rava said to Rav Papa, Rabbi Akiva, it's like going up the chain of command. And according to Rabbah, it is indeed resolved how all these rulings are specifically according to Rabbi Akiva. It's actually a question. Sefer b'mayim mokim, how does Rabbah interpret the latter segment of the Mishnah? Where he said, from any of you, both initially and after discovering that his father was amongst them. Hein din hu rishon, then which one is the first one? Hein din hu achron, and which one is the last one? So it gets a little confusing here, but you understand what they're arguing about. Rather, I will explain that both, according to Rabbah and me, the first segment of the Mishnah refers to where he said, I will not benefit from any of you. The Sefer Kigan Shetlan Zeh. And the latter segment refers to a case in which he tied each successive one to the preceding one, V'yama ploni, bifloni, floni, bifloni, and he said, this one shall be forbidden like this one, and this one like this one. So that's kind of like, again, the domino effect. Daikanami, and this explanation is indeed precise. The Tanya Hutar and Tzai, for was taught in a brisa regarding the case of the Mishnah. If the middle one is permitted, Hemeno Lamata Mutarin, then from him and below are permitted. Or Lamala Asurin, and from those above him are forbidden. So again, thinking of the dominoes, it depends how you look at it. I guess I have to turn it around this way. But it's kind of, again, it goes, if you start in the middle of you remember when we learned, I think it was in Megillah or somewhere, about how many aliyahs you have to have. And the problem was that if someone walked into shul in the middle aliyah, then they might not think you really need 3 or 4 psukim. Right? Does that ring a bell? Pavlov, yeah, it does ring a bell somewhere. Okay, so this kind of reminds me of that. When you look at the middle, then what goes with the middle? Anyway, keep on going.
Do you have any ideas what they're permitting, or what the object is they're permitting, or just in general?
It's really what they're annulling. And then the question is, who else gets annulled with them? But you're right as far as permitting, because there'll be other cases where they'll be discussing, I think it's the next page, where he's saying things in the question, does this go with it? But again, you got the takeaway point. Esrei Rav Hada, remember, I'm not the Rav. Number 2, Daf Yomi is not. I knew you knew. You knew that.
He's the Rav.
Wait,
Rennie's the Rav.
Right. The Daf Yomi is not a halacha shir. So certainly anything I say is not halacha at all. I might be by accident, but not because I knew it. Okay? So, Esrei Rav Hada bar Ava l'Rava. Rav Hada bar Ava, he's a new player, comes in the game, challenge Rava from the latter part of the Mishnah and says, Konam, I like this. Konam batzo, shani toim, shabatzo ralev. A konam, again, he's making a neder. Onions with respect to my tasting them, because onion is bad for the heart. So, you know what? I said, what do you mean onions is bad for the heart? I never knew that. So I looked up, hold on a second, and it says here, research shows that eating onions may help. It says it in there too. What? What? Oh, right, perhaps. Wait, I can read this. You read that. That's for you. Too much there. Research shows that eating onions may help reduce heart disease, risk factors. By the way, you know the difference between purple and the white?
One's sweeter.
One's good
Yellow
for the heart.
You eat these raw preferably. That's why they always serve these on a burger in a in like a restaurant. These you cut up, you simmer them on the frying pan, and then you put them in your cut up potatoes, and you make what do you call it? Home fries.
What happens if you eat that raw?
Can I finish reading this hot thing? Thank you. Summary. Then we can discuss onions. Research shows that eating onions may help reduce heart disease risk factors such as high blood pressure, elevated triglyceride levels, and inflammation. Now, I'll tell you one reason why. It's like garlic, because you eat onions and everyone stays away from you. So it's like nothing aggravates you. You're not going to raise your blood pressure, but that's probably it. Okay, what did you want to tell me? That
here gives you the explanation that is.
say it loud. If you're going to say it, say it. Don't show it to me. The font is too small. Read it loud.
Allopropyl sulfate, which is
it's got antioxidants. It's got all this
a compound.
It's
found
stuff in it. Yeah. By the way, please, if you haven't eaten dates for a while, you can eat this and make a shehechian.
How old are those?
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's fine.
I just bought it. Best before November 2023.
It's fine.
Brand new. I just bought it.
You can make a shechian.
What?
Why are they empty?
Oh, because they were so good.
They were
They
good.
can't-
Yeah. They look big, but huge.
Yeah, good grapes. Yeah. By the way, I couldn't figure out what this action was that says OM. That's nothing. I think it just means it's made in Mexico and then sent to California. I looked over
No, they're
here
excellent.
because I was holding it, took my thumb off. Here's where the OU is. Just
Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's continue. Onions, with respect to my tasting them, because onions is bad for the heart. He says this as a neder. Amar lo v'alo hakufrei yafel alev. So they question him, said, wait a minute, but isn't a kufri onion good for the heart? So that's a specific type onion, right? Kuta bekufri. In this case, the law is that he is permitted to eat the kufri variety because he was talking about the ones that were bad for his heart. So he never really had the kufri in mind, just like he with the parentheses, but not by father. All right. He was never saying that his father couldn't eat something, you know, it was never even in his mind. So again, you got to think of what the intent was. He's permitted to eat not only kufri, and look at this, for lo the kufri bilvad hutar, and he is permitted to eat not only the kufri variety, ela b'chol habitzolim, but he's also permitted to eat all types of onions, meaning all types of onions that are good for the heart. All right, because that was what his intent was. All right, story. Masa Yavi to Rabbi Meir b'chol habitzolim. There was such an incident where Rav Meir permitted him to eat all the types of onions. Ravada Bar Ava now concludes his challenge to Rava. My love, Dama Eloisi Yodea Shakurfi Yafel Alev. Is it not referring to where he said, had I known that the Kurfi variety is good for the heart, then I would have changed my statement. Right, this is like case number 2, and it would have retained my original formulation and said in my vow, all types of my onions are forbidden, but the kufri variety is permitted. But in that case, where the original formulation would have been retained, that's case number 1, you rather would have said, Beis Shammai holds with Rav Meir that we take hold of the first expression, all onions are forbidden, and do not consider it a neder that is nullified in part. It is, don't ask me here, because here's where I start to get confused. It is not reasonable then, Chaim, you're not even saying a word or trying to bail me out. It is not reasonable then to assume the converse, that Rav Meir would agree with Beis Shammai.
You're doing amazing.
You're
You're doing amazing. Relax.
Amazingly confusing. All right. Yet here the
Sorry he
Mishnah.
attacked you, Chaim.
All right. I'm not attacking him. I'm requesting him. Yet here the Mishnah states that Rav Meir himself ruled that it's nullified in part and therefore nullified in its entirety. Well, we keep on seeing that recurrent theme. If you remember one thing, Rav Meir says if it's b'mechza, it's bekula, that it's nullified. The Gemara answers, no. The Mishnah is not referring to where the vower would have retained his original formulation. Had I known that the kufri variety is good for the heart, I would have changed my formulation and said my vow, this type of onion are forbidden, the kufri mutar, which was case number 2, where he said, you can't eat, but my father can eat, right? And where the vow would change his formula, I, Rava, maintain that everyone agrees that a neder nullified in part is nullified in his entirety. So he's now agreeing with Rav Meir. Rabbi Meir, aliba the Rabbi Akiva, aliba the Rabbana. Thus, the ruling of Rav Meir permitting the vower, is that the way you pronounce it, vower? It just sounds funny. Vower to eat all types of onion is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva and in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. Again, if you can just take the takeaway points away, I think you accomplish plenty. Right. Rabbeinu l'Rava. All right. We got to keep on going. We'll get up to date. Ravina challenged Rabbi from the following brisa. Rabbi Nassan Omer. Nassan, Avram Nassan. There is a neder, the part of it is permitted, part of it is forbidden. Ketzit, how so? Not a minakakala. If one vowed not to benefit from a basket of figs, I was going to bring a basket of figs, but they were so good.
The figs.
You brought the fig, yay! Yay! I love class participation. The figs, the professor brought the figs. Vayu
We
ba.
get to eat them, right?
All right.
Or we
If
put
you
it in
didn't
the
eat
fridge.
yet, you can.
You can eat them, but you can't eat them.
But just remember, the bracha achrona on dates and figs
What?
is the ein chalosh ha'etz ya'priyetz. It's like alamicha. It's not a bar in the fushes. Remember that.
But
You can, so you get to say that. Not only chechiyanu if you haven't eaten
I
that for
haven't
the
had that
first
in a
season.
long time.
Whoa. Say that loud. We can answer me.
Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam, borei pri ha'etz.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam, shechianu v'kimanu v'yanu v'zman hazeh.
Oh, now you come to the shir, you get mitzvahs. All right. Vayu ba b'nesh shua.
what's the word for basket that they use?
I gotta go back. It's gonna mess me up.
Figs in a basket.
It's at the top of
Fig Newtons.
106 in the corner.
Yeah. Look at that word.
I gotta go back. Okay. Previous. Kalkala.
Calcula, you know what calcula means in modern Hebrew? Economics.
Spoiled.
No, economics. Calcula.
I thought it's
Clee,
spoiled.
clee, but this is with a cuff.
Oh,
Economy.
okay.
Economy.
Okay.
So it's a basket.
It's a basket. Okay. Oy vey, our basket is really messed up. All right. Vayuba b'nas shuach, and he then discovered that besides regular figs, it also contains b'nas shuach. B'nas shuach is not like it's not like daughters. It's a name of a type of figs. All right.
Is that a bracha?
Vama ilu hayisi yadesh b'nas shuach b'socha. Had I known there were b'nas shuach in it, well, you didn't know that, I would not have done it. Again, this takeaway thing we keep on repeating is that the person made a neder, all right? His intent was kind of generalized neder, but he never intended these specific things, whether it was the kufri onions or the b'nas shuchat, right? There was never, and I really realized it was in there, I would have delineated it. And the b'nas shuach that are in it are permitted, all right? Rabbi Akiva, believe me, then until Rabbi Akiva came along, guess what? Said, Neder should mitzeso, huta kulo. Here we get again. You're going to remember this saying forever. A vow that is nullified in part is nullified in its entirety. All right. Ravina concludes his challenge to Rabbi. My love, Dharma, is now referring to where he said, had I known that b'nas shuach was in it, now he would have delineated you, and you. All right? He would have said the black figs and the white figs, they're forbidden, but the b'nas shuach are permitted. For Rabbi Akiva, he ufligi rabbanan, yet it is evident that this ruling is specific to Rabbi Akiva, whereas the rabbis argue with him. But according to Rava, who says that where the vow would have changed his original formulation, all agreed in neder nullified in part is nullified in its entirety. Even the rabbi should agree that neder is nullified in its entirety. It's actually a question mark. No, the Mishnah is now referring to the vow where he has changed his original formulation, which was case number 2. Had I known that those were included, I would have retained. No, he's saying case 1. I would have retained my original formulation. The entire basket is Asra of a Nashuach Mutaris. In parentheses, my father can eat. Nashuach is Mutaris. So you see, we're bringing all these cases that are very similar to the initial case, all right, and see what his intent was. Man Tana Lahad, it's non-Rabbana. Who is the Tana that taught this following Brisa to the rabbis taught? If one vowed not to benefit from 5 people once, that is, he included all 5 of them in one vow. If he was then permitted to benefit from one of them, all of them are permitted to him. If except for one of them who mutar v'hein asurim, then that one is permitted, and the remaining ones are mutarim. Let me just go further. Right, the first part of the brisa nullifies the entirety of the neder that was nullified in part, whereas the latter part of the brisa does not nullify the entirety of the neder. Necessarily, the first part of the brisa refers to where the vower maintains that he would have changed his original formulation had he known the permitted one was amongst them, whereas the latter part of the Bryce refers to where he would have retained his original formulation and simply added the exclusion of the permitted one. Ila Rabba, if we explain this Bryce as according to view of Rabba, Reisha Rabbi Akiva. Then the first part Bryce reflects the view of Rabbi Akiva of the Sefer Divrei Kol, but the latter part reflects the opinion of all. Ila Rabba, if we explain the Bryce according to the view of Rabba Sefer Rabbanan, then the latter part of the Bryce reflects the opinion of the rabbis for Reisha Divrei Kol, and the first part Bryce reflects the opinion of all. In other words, you can kind of play with this any way you want, and to support, like it's like a lawyer. You decide which. No, I mean, they can use it. That's right. Whatever works for you. All right. I'm not present lawyers excluded. When is the case of Nedarim of circumstances beyond one's control? One said a neder against him. Wait, for example, one's friend declared a neder against him that he should eat with him. It's funny because he's making that against him that you should eat with him. In other words, meaning that I want you to come eat with me. All right? This domino wants this domino to eat with him. All right?
Your house.
Guess what happened? And the invitee was not able to attend the feast. He didn't show up. Why? He became ill. Or his son became ill. We had to take of him. Or he was prevented because the river swelled and he couldn't cross, the dry land. These are examples of Nedarim where the circumstances were beyond one's control. All right, that's called onus. All right, and
the rainstorm last night.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah, because the conditions in Neder were met as a result of the circumstances beyond its control. Therefore, the Neder does not take effect. Right, so a neder does not take effect when it's something beyond your control, of course. Ahu Gavra de Pais, Zachvasa Dina. There was a certain man who handed over the court documents to support his rights to another property. So a guy comes to court, he brings his dossier of documents that all show that he owns this other property. Vramar, he says, Lo asina at lasin yamin. If I don't show up for 30 days, then all these documents should be annulled, which means basically there goes his right to claim that property. He says that. Itnis philo asa. He was constrained by unavoidable circumstances and didn't make it back in time for the 30 days. Rav Huna says, guess what? You lose the chance. That's it. You can't claim the property. Rava said to him, Anasu, but what do you mean? He was a victim of circumstances. But Judge, I was a victim of, my neighborhood growing up. I was a victim of circumstances. They beat me, they didn't think me. But you're right. For Anas Rachbana Patre, and the mercy for one released from liability, one is a victim of circumstances. We know that. Beyond this, we have the case of the Nara Musa, a woman who was betrothed. All right, and she unfortunately got raped. All right, it wasn't her fault.
Who did it?
No, who did it? The bad guy.
They violated.
Violated. All right, a betrothed girl who is violated. All right, the girl didn't do anything bad. All right, so it was beyond her circumstances. There's no negative claim on her. All right, she's okay. And perhaps you say the execution is different. Let's say, to prove my point to it. For we learned in the Mishnah, Nidrei Yonsin, in the case of Nedarim of circumstance beyond one's control, give me a case, for example, one's friend declared a neder against him that he should eat with him. This one we're repeating that he was sick, or the river swelled up. These are examples of circumstances beyond the control. But according to Rava, how is the present case different from that what we learned in the following Mishnah? A man gives a woman a get. He says he's about to embark on the journey. So he gives a get to his wife and says, this is your get from now Im lo basi mikan ad shnei masar chodesh. If I don't return within 12 months, all right? That's kind of a strange story. All right. Please mute your sound. Somebody just came on. Please mute your sound. They're not gonna. Okay. If I do not come back within 12 months from now, and he actually did die within the 12 months, then the get is retroactively okay. All right. But why is the get valid? He was surely constrained. I mean, we're saying, wasn't this honest? You know, I mean, he died. He didn't ask to die. It was beyond his circumstances. God killed him. Something happened. He died. So we said up until now, something's beyond your circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't count.
He's
Now,
definitely not coming back after 12 months. That's for sure.
he ain't coming back at all. So maybe it's different there in the case of a conditional get. All right. How do you know he would die within 12 months? He would have immediately given her a get unconditionally. That makes sense. I just came to me mind the story of a friend of mine from it's terrible, but a long time ago. No, who was dying from cancer. And so he went and he gave his wife a get so that he wouldn't be, let's say he wouldn't go into a comatose situation or something like that. Done. Maishna me'ahuda, it was a true story. Maishna me'ahuda amar lahu. How is the present case of conditional annulment of rights different from a certain person who said to them, Ilo asina mikan aklasim yamin? He says, if I don't, give another case, he says, if I don't come back within 30 days, let this be a valid get. Guess what happens? He shows up in 30 days. Remember the end of what we just finished, Ksubas. The last page or two of Ksubas, the guy starts walking like on a tightrope bridge across the Jordan. And Kuti or whoever it is looking says, what are you doing? Why don't you wait for a ferry? He goes, I ain't waiting for a ferry. I wasn't, you think I'm at the level of like Moshe Rabbeinu? He wasn't even Zocha to get into her. So I'm going to wait for a ferry. I got a chance. Carpe diem. I'm going. All right. So this guy here, he shows up in 30 days, but guess what? He misses the ferry. So he's standing on the other side of the water, or he says to them, hey, I'm here. It's 30 days. Don't give my wife the get. I'm a Shmuel. And Shmuel said, it is not, don't do this, what's his name sending me messages? Stop it, messes up this whole Gemara. And Shmuel said, it is not called coming to the town since he did not actually make it to town on time. Amai v'ham menas on this. But why is it get valid? So still asking a question. It was an unforeseeable circumstance. You know what? Show up early and catch the bus, catch the train, catch the plane. Don't show up the last minute and then say, oh, they closed the gate on me. You didn't show up 2 hours before, like the rules, right? What's the saying in Chinese? You snooze, you lose. Yeah, I don't know. It's Chinese. All right. Dilma unsa de migla shani. Perhaps a foreseeable constraint is different. It cannot serve to invalidate an act. Ma'abra milgo unsa, and the constraint of being stopped by the lack of the ferry is foreseeable. All right, just 1 second here.
Flat tire.
What's going on with this? Switch camera. Perhaps a physical constraint is different. It cannot serve to invalidate in that. And the constraint of being stopped by the lack of a ferry is foreseeable. We just said that. Let's see if we can finish this. Having satisfactorily answered the challenges of Rava's position, the Gemara turns its attention to the opinion of Rava or Rav Huna. But according to Rav Huna, who rules that the litigant had annulled his rights by failing to return on time, asmachtahi. Now let us see this commitment he was made. He has made to know his rights is an asmachta. Now there's two types of asmachtas. Here we're talking about a commitment. There's also the asmachta that's like where a raya, a support comes from Nivim, Ksuvim, whatever, instead of from the Chumash. This here we're talking about just a commitment. All right, Vasmachta lo kanya. Rav Huna holds that Asmachta is not a binding commitment. Rav Huna said, then Rav Huna then should rule that the litigant has not annulled his rights even if he voluntarily fails to return. Shani hacha. Here, in a different case, the mitapchin zechusim for his documents of rights are being held by the court, since the object about which he has made the commitment, the documents that embodies his rights of property, is no longer in his possession, but in the hands of the court. His commitment is not considered an asmachta. That was just an answer. But is it so where his rights are being held by the court, that's not considered an asmachta? We learned in Mishnah, one who repaid part of his debt, and then he deposited his loan document with a third party. Remember, when you pay a whole debt, then you usually take the document so the guy can claim and say, hey, you still owe me this money. So you take the document, rip it up. But since he only paid part of it, all right, he gave that document to a third party. And he said to the third party, if I don't give the lender within 30 days from now, the 2/3 that are left, give him his loan document. He gives man below Natan. 30 days came, and he didn't pay the balance of the debt. Rabbi Yossi says, Omer Yitain. He said, Rabbi Yossi says he should give the document to the lender. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, don't give it. Rabbi Nachman Amar Rabba, Baravua Amar Rav. So he said in the name of Rav, Ein halacha ke Rabbi Yossi damasmachta kanya. He doesn't call him Rabbi Yossi because an asmachta is binding. Answer. Shani hacha. All right. Here, in the case of the litigant's annulment of the rights, it is different from the usual case of an asmachta lebatla and kusei, where he said his rights should be annulled. Vilchas asmachta kanya. Because the law is an asmachta, is binding. The hudalo on this, provided he was not constrained for fulfilling his commitment. So the takeaway point from this thing, which you should review, is the concept of an asmachta. It's a type of commitment, and so one says it's not binding, one says it isn't binding, and it depends, according to one, if there wasn't unforeseeable circumstances. Almost done. This is interesting. And this is provided they made a formal act of acquisition with him on behalf of the party in the prestigious court. You can't just go to a bunch of three guys around. You got to make sure you're going to the right guys. I'll leave this Mishnah. I left now. Somewhere there was something we learned where a guy says, I won't have wine and I won't have meat. Couldn't bring a cow. It was somewhere in there. All right. And then he says, no, it wasn't really a neder because what Shabbos and Yontif, he definitely would have had it. So, whatever.
Wow, you're well done. It's really good.
Cover 2 pages. I gotta leave. The rabbi will fix whatever we do. 8 minutes.
Thank you.